Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the second biggest podcast in the Pacific Northwest. I know it's hard to believe, everybody. I know. We are still on the heels of those pesky Sasquatch hunters, but I know for a fact, you're hearing it here first, folks. This episode will take us to the apex. And we will reign supreme in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, you are listening to Business Over Beer. I'm your co-host, Ben Surratt. Across the table from me, to my left, is the man of the hour. The terror of power. Some people call him a space cowboy. Some people call him Man Bun. Some people call him the Brosno Dragon.
Oh my God.
But we of course call him Spartacus. Jonathan Kaler, welcome to Business Over Beer. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We're back in our old spot
Dude.
on a Friday.
It's our 2-year anniversary yesterday, but
Yeah.
dude,
2 years.
it's crazy.
I'm a picker. I'm a grinner. I'm a lover. I'm a sinner. And I am Spartacus. I have led you here, my friend. We're into the new season.
Oh man, it's
We've
awesome.
got a great guest. We're out and about in the world. It's just, I couldn't be happier.
True.
And speaking of people, that get their lovin' on the run. We have got the gift that keeps on giving. He is affectionately known as the gangsta of Hazeldale. You guys down with the KNOPP?
Yeah, you know me.
Jason Knope, welcome to Business Over Beer, my friend. How you feeling tonight?
Not too bad, Mr. Dragon. I'm doing all right. It was a fantastic intro, by the way. Wow.
Hey, I've been working on it all week, and I almost choked. I almost couldn't come up with that. I had to run through the lyrics in my head to get back there. So
I imagine you sat there for at least a couple hours thinking this through, figuring out how can I make this work, and finally you did.
I finally did.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. I'm even better because we're here with Lacey Faught. She is a social media manager and consultant.
Lindsay.
Yeah. No, try again.
It's the second time I did that.
Maybe you should have spent 2 hours
No,
preparing your introductions. You want to take that again?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. We are with social media marketing expert and consultant Lacey Faught with Spry Digital in Vancouver, Washington. How you doing tonight?
I am questioning every choice that led me to this moment, to be honest with you.
Well,
Yeah, get in line.
What I witnessed in the last few minutes was beyond what I could have expected for an intro, so
that's pretty much the highlight. It all
make
That's
it through.
why they bring me along.
It all goes downhill from here. But in all seriousness, Lacy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We always like to start with your business. So why don't you give us the 50,000-foot view of Spry social media and kind of what you're into?
Okay, so I started Spry about 10 years ago. And so throughout time, we've niched down, and our main focus is social media community building specifically. So people who are interested in getting, I want to get 20 leads in the next week, I'll send them somewhere else. We want to meet with people who actually have an idea or a vision that takes community to get to. And so we like to be able to help people attract a community of like-minded people to follow them on social media to get them closer and closer to what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes that looks like us managing their social media accounts. Sometimes it looks like us consulting and teaching them through the process. But it's really about actually making human connection through social media. How'd I do?
Well, that's fantastic. I have very much a love-hate relationship with social media, but your social media for good initiative really just kind of hits a note with me that really resonates. And I'm a humanist, so I love this idea of bringing in the human touch to it. So we'll get into all of those things. I can't wait to get your take on that. But Lacy, this is the Business Over Beer podcast. This is the beer portion of the program. We ask all of our guests to bring a beer to share. Lacy, it's Friday afternoon. Ben is thirsty. Have you brought us a beer to share?
I brought it. Can I show you?
Yes.
Please, I know you've been dying.
You
to
ready?
show us.
This is what I brought you today.
The diamonds.
Okay, this is Headless Mumby, who's based out of Chehalis,
Can I
Washington.
ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
There's only 5, Lacy.
Yeah, where's what's going on?
What happened to the 6th one there, Lacy?
All right, here's what happened.
That's okay. Don't forget it. Tell us about your beer. I'm sorry. Forget it. Tell us about your beer. I didn't mean to derail.
Headless Mumby, based out of Chehalis, Washington. Okay, so I am nothing if I'm not just a part of my team. Okay, so I'm personally not a huge beer person. So when I said I was going to be on this podcast, I'm like, people, what should I do? What should I bring? So one of our clients is Headless Mumby, based out of Chehalis, and so the strategist in charge of her account was like, they're about to release an Oktoberfest. We're going to pick this up for you. They picked it up on Wednesday, dropped it off to another team member who drove it down here and tested it for me. Okay. So Adrienne had one. She tested it. She gave me nice review notes so that I would know what to say and not sound unintelligent.
Excellent.
So
She
Amber
comes prepared.
and Adrienne prepared me for this. By myself, it would have been much worse.
Outstanding. Well, that is a great story. That's a great
awesome.
cover for drinking in the afternoon. So it's totally fine. Well, let's open it up. I would also like to test it. How about
Yes.
you, Ben? Would you like to test it?
Oh, I'm going to test it like a mofo. Yes, I just said mofo.
Yeah, you had me at the Bavarian flag here. I was just like, yep, it's going to be good.
Yep, they just let this Oktoberfest out. I think this week they released it, so. Pretty.
It's very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a TikTok here real quick. So
Oh, we can post.
Oh, we'll post on TikTok?
thank you so much for having us at your place and for being on the show.
That's a good sound too.
Cheers.
Ooh, cheers.
Prost.
And in our glasses too.
Yeah, it smells delicious.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't drank out of our glasses in a long time.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you want to hear Adrienne's review? This is my team's prepared review.
I want to hear your review. Your review.
My
first.
review is
What do you think?
it tastes good. That's my review because that's my experience level with beer. But let me read you a good review that came from Adrienne, and you tell me if you like it or not. First of all, she says the goods have been secured. She said it's a good Oktoberfest, nutty, a little bite, nice caramel, full-bodied, a perfect fall beer. Okay, so argue with me. How do you feel about it?
I would probably challenge, from my perspective, the full-bodied and because didn't she also use the word light in there?
What did she say? No, she said a little bite.
A little bite. Okay. Because it drinks a little light to me. To me, on my palate, I don't think it's overly full-bodied.
No.
It's definitely I get the crisp. I get the bite of the crispness of the lager, and the caramel backbone is really nice. But yeah, it's really really delicious.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. Especially with the nose, it smells like fall.
It does, doesn't it?
Smells like fall. So I am not a Pilsner fan, but I love Oktoberfest beers. I'm weird. I know, dude. You're looking at me like.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I know.
Because I'm not a big lager drinker either. If I'm gonna drink a lager, something like this that has some more character in it, a little more personality, which the Oktoberfests do. It's not overly sweet. A lot of these can be like all sweetness and no beer. The bite really makes
That's
the
the
bite
difference.
really makes it. It's
for
not
sure.
overly malty, so I like that.
I guess it reminds me more of a red, like a more of a reddish type of. I love red ales, And this has more of that family, the Red Ale family, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, Lacy, let's talk about your aha moment.
Okay.
All right? When did that come? When did you realize, hey, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to focus on social media?
So I had my first job out of college working for a digital marketing company who was doing primarily website development and SEO. And I got brought on as an account manager and came to find that the people who were paying us monthly retainers actually weren't getting anything for what they were paying for. And so on the job, I learned what it is we were supposed to be doing and then started doing said thing. So even in that business, I realized, okay, there's obviously the capacity to make income of this, and people don't even understand what it is that they're paying for. So they know they need it, they're willing to pay for it, and there are companies all over that are doing nothing to actually fulfill their end of the bargain. So at that company, when my paycheck started coming later and then in cash, I said, I think I'm out, and also sign away my non-compete, please. And that worked out. I mean, it wasn't quite that friendly.
Right.
But the first couple of clients that I ended up having followed right with me because I was the first one who actually had some momentum with their account after they'd been paying. It started out as SEO and website development, and I started doing social media only because it was part of the search engine optimization process. We knew that it was starting to get more backlinks and whatnot from social media, and then as SEO, search engine optimization, became more and more saturated, there was more of an avenue to specialize in social media marketing. And it's what the team that I had at the time was the most fit for. I did a sit down with the team where I said, what is it that we are good at? And what is it that we want to keep doing? What is it that we want to stop doing? What is it that we want to start doing? And we just started redlining things that didn't fit
And
our
did you have
expertise.
a team from the beginning when you left?
No.
It was just you?
Yes. So it was just me for about 6 years.
Oh,
and I guess
wow.
really, I mean, if we're talking aha moment,
the
which
aha
is what your
moment.
original question was, my husband at the time had his degree in accounting, and he just looked at me and he said, you could totally do this on your own. You wouldn't have to get another job necessarily. And I'm like, all right, let's try it. And so he set up the legal background and set up the initial accounting, and then I just kind of ran from there. I've always had a sense of confidence that I could basically accomplish whatever it is that I decided to do, and that's played out well. So does that answer your question okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were, I mean, what,
22?
23?
22 when we started.
I mean, and so... Oh boy! Like
You remember
22?
22?
I remember 22, and I was in no position. Of course, I didn't have expertise in any area at 22 where I felt like I could start my own business. But so I mean, what was that? What was that journey like when your husband said, "Sure, go ahead and do this"? I mean, was there any sort of like reservation on your part? I know you have this confidence that you talked about, but were you scared or were you nervous, or kind of what were you going through emotionally when you tried to make that decision to really launch off and go on your own?
Every moment was scary. I mean, really, when you come up with what your pricing structure is going to be, and when you actually start pitching it to people and like pretending like you feel like you're worth what you're asking for, every single moment was scary. But I'm such an independent person on my own that it just fit me very well to be able to just only have to battle with myself about this and not have to take somebody else's idea and somehow make that align with my values and then sell that. It was much easier to sell my own values and my own integrity because I was so comfortable with those things. But yeah, it was scary every moment. It's still scary every moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love what you said, that it never starts getting easy. You just get more comfortable with it being hard.
Yes, I thought that was a great question in your questionnaire. Looking back, what would I tell myself when I started? And I think a lot of people have the idea that if you just keep going, it's going to get easier, and it's going to get easier, and it's going to get easier. I've never felt like a day was easier. I feel like it's always this level of hard. And you just get conditioned to it over time. And you just get used to the fact that, okay, well, I've shown up day after day with it being this hard, and I've been able to complete my day and not die. So here I am.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
At that age, how did you take rejection? You had to have some rejection when you first started. Everybody gets rejected. But at a young age, like, Kayla was saying, man, at 22, 23, I would be in my head. I would be a basket case if I heard no, no, no over and over. Maybe you didn't hear no, no, no over and over, but how did you handle that rejection?
Well, people don't say no to me very often.
No.
If I'm honest. But in reality, right? I went out and I was like downtown here, like going business to business, talking. I would look at somebody's outdoor on their web, and I would look up their website real quick, and if it was not great or it was old or they didn't have one, then I'd walk in and have some, something to say about what their current digital assets were like. And I don't think I made a single sale from doing that here. Where I actually ended up making connections was when I started in kind of smaller networking groups, where I could make personal relationships and have real conversations with people. And so in those situations, there was almost no rejection. But, you kind of have to do both still to find your pathway. And now I don't do really any networking. I use all of my skills on social media to be my digital networking. But I don't know, what is rejection? People said no a lot there, but a lot of it is just this internal battle of just being willing to show up every day. It's like facing my own opportunity to reject myself more than anything else, and just quieting that voice over and over again.
Yeah, like the mindset, the changing of your mindset. You're no longer working for somebody, you're working for yourself. And you're the leader. Like that's another mind that would really messed with my mind. And I was, 30-something when I started my business. It's crazy.
I did set it up in a way that looked like it wasn't just me.
Did you?
Yes. So when I set it up at 22, I picked a name, and it wasn't, now it's Spry, right? But before, and my company, my mother company name is called Whipple. And I just set up the website and everything to look like it was a larger organization. And I didn't even put myself on it anywhere. So I kind of showed up as if I was doing sales and account management for a bigger company. I even remember, I got a client in New Jersey, and my website said Whipple goes national, and I'm like just this 22, 23-year-old, chilling, eating Doritos in my downstairs office, trying to make everything happen all by myself. But yeah, for the first long while, it probably was until 5 years in where I actually started showing up as my face being the representation of the brand.
To contrast that last question, how did you celebrate your victories and your wins? Because also at 22, at 22, I get my own paycheck. I probably was not responsible enough to, spend it wisely. How did you celebrate your victories?
Well, I can tell you, I'm still getting 2012, 2013, 2014 tax things that come back and say, this number doesn't match this number, doesn't match this number that you put in. I can blame that on my ex, though, right? Because he was the accountant.
I was going to say, I was just about to ask you, who was the accountant back then?
Exactly. But at that time, really, I didn't do a good job of even paying myself through payroll or anything. I would primarily just use the money that was in the business because I'm the only person working for it. I had vendors that I would use and whatnot, but I would just use it as if it was my personal bank account. It took me until I brought on an external business partner for a little while to try to bring those things into better alignment. And I can tell you that now, 10 years in, 10 and a half now, that having faith and confidence in my books makes me so much more comfortable. I guess that's one thing that made the fear diminish some, okay? Feeling like I have help in specific operational things that I do not specialize in has taken an element of fear and made it gone, right? I don't have to worry that things are being done properly, that my taxes are being turned in on time, that my husband's doing one big payroll allotment for the whole year that's shown, that we did the first few years.
Yep.
When there was nobody to answer to.
So social media, I mean, has clearly become, table stakes, right? It is a must-have if you're in business. So what's what's one thing that businesses seem to get wrong consistently with regard to social media?
I would say showing up vulnerably is one thing that people consistently get wrong. People think that they have to have a polished look and feel in regards to marketing, and that actually ends up becoming very cold and not human. And so I actually had a new client ask me at the end of our first meeting for their setup, if we're looking 6 months down the road and we look back, what would be the thing that would really mess us up? Like, what's the biggest mistake we could make to make this all not worth it? And I said just being boring, like being just cold and clean. That is one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of business owners make. They just want to check the box that they've got posts done, and they want to have a certain facade about how people view them. And the truth is, like, all of us, when we're on social media right now, are just wanting to have some relatability. We just want to feel like humans because we're so isolated from each other right now, and we're experiencing so much collective trauma right now that anything that's polished over is fake, and people can smell that very quickly, and you just scroll by. You put out a piece of content that's honest and vulnerable and real, and that's the kind of thing that people actually stop and connect with because it actually resonates with something that's inside of them. So that's probably the biggest thing that people make a mistake on social media, is trying to kind of put on a polish or a facade, like I did when I was 22, when I was trying to say that I'm bigger than I am. Had I come out at that point and been like, I'm starting this business from scratch, I might have a stronger personal following, a stronger personal brand if I would have started that way and not hid behind something that I wasn't, to be honest.
But that's a shift somewhat recently, isn't it? I mean, maybe that's a shift from before you started in business, but I would say over the last decade, that's become more to the forefront of being less polished, of being real, of being authentic, right? Authentic was the biggest buzzword of the early 20-teens, right? But before that, it wasn't that. You had to be polished, you had to be professional, you had to come out. I don't know that I would agree that you would have been more successful. I think probably back in 2011, when you started, that was probably received better than it would be today. If you had gone out and said, I'm a 22-year-old recent college graduate and I'm going to come in and I'm going to change your world, they'd be like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah, I feel like people are more casual now and more accepting of that type of, social media response, where people are like, hey, well, she's being real. Whereas back when you started, I think that it was appropriate.
I think maybe content saturation has led into that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can get any information that you want from anywhere right now on any topic. And so what draws people in has less to do with anything polished. It has to do with it aligning with something that's inside them. People get to choose what they follow, and they have every choice available to them. So you have to do something that's unique. You have to do something that's real, because those are the things that actually resonate with people now. But I think you're right. The style in which we've chosen to create social media content has evolved unbelievably over a decade. Because before we could just check off the list of, all right, we've done 4 social media posts. We grab the images off of a stock photography site. There's very little meat to the content, but it's driving traffic to their website. And that's switched now with having to do authentic stock photography that's of the actual people in the business, getting to know what's unique about the people in the business, holding them accountable for the values that they say that they have, to make sure that the content we're putting out is actually what people will experience when they call or show up. So yeah, it's definitely evolved immensely over time.
Wow.
That's really interesting. But the other side of that, the practical side of that for business owners is it is still a box, because for a lot of business owners, they're not good at it. They don't fully understand it, but they know they need to do it. So My follow-up question was, why is it important to get it right? And I think you really just answered that question right there, that, getting out of that mindset of it just being a box to check and, hey, we've got to do this, so let's just go do it and do it quickly and move on to something else. But being much more deliberate, much more intentional, maybe doing less better than more worse is probably a good advice for a small business owner who is trying to navigate how to really build this into their day-to-day.
And you're not the only one that has a love-hate relationship with social media. The number of people that we meet with who want to have somebody else do it because they don't want to have to be on the social media platforms is large. Which is also why we do have this movement that we're working on called Social Media for Good, where, basically what we're trying to do is, if I go all the way back to what we're trying to accomplish with that, it's that I actually believe that people can communicate properly to each other, period. And right now, the way that people use social media, the vast majority of people, the way they use social media is the communication is broken. It's so broken, which is why so many people have a personal dislike of social media. And so I feel like if we're going to make any money in this industry and we're going to continue to be able to make money in this industry, then we better be putting just as much effort into maintaining the platforms and how people behave on the platforms themselves, or else it will implode and we won't be able to have a business in this vertical anymore.
So do you believe that maybe people couldn't communicate with each other because of the fact that the pandemic was happening? Because we've noticed that in a lot of cases, when people would come back into establishments like restaurants and stuff, people had issues communicating with one another because they had been apart for so long. And so maybe that's why people couldn't quite understand what people were trying to do on social media.
I think that's part of it. I think the isolation certainly hasn't helped with people's social abilities, maybe mine included. However, there's a couple different layers too. As part of Social Media for Good, we research a lot of social media for bad, which means, we look back to 2016 when there was the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data breach, if you will, when really what happened was there was immense amounts of Facebook data that was used to spread a lot of misinformation through untrackable, unbranded accounts on social media. And so what happened from then is that nobody can trust content that they see on social media right now. And the way that the algorithms work on social media is creating this echo chamber where you only hear and see content that you engage with. And so if it doesn't hit your political line or it doesn't hit what you already agree with, then you don't even see it. So really, we kind of have these two different realities that people are experiencing, and probably more than two, but I'm oversimplifying, but people have different realities that they're experiencing on social media. So when you see someone saying something and you have no idea where it's come from, it just leads to this argument because we just don't even have a shared trust of the information that we're getting out. So it's a little bit more layered and nuanced. And there have been, organizations who have intentionally abused social media in a way that leads people to distrust information and distrust each other. And so part of it is just healing some of those wounds and just teaching people how to communicate what their opinions and ideas are in a way that's respectful, instead of based in fear overall.
Well, all of that sounds great and is very utopian. So I'm interested to talk about sort of the practical application of that and how do human beings get past their own massive identity crisis that we have going on in this country, past the massive mental health crisis that we have going on in this country, and how do we put the focus on things like social media for good and actually execute just what you said so that it can be very much humanized and good for society. So looking forward to getting into that and learning more about sort of the future of Spry and where you guys are going, and maybe get into a little bit about how you guys have pivoted during the pandemic. But before we get there, Ben, you look thirsty.
Oh, I am thirsty.
I knew it.
Join us next week for part 2 of this episode. You can be sure we'll be talking more business and drinking more beer. Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer, a TH3 Entertainment production.